Welcome to Stampscaping 101. We have some pretty exciting paper here for hopefully a fairly quick and easy scene. It's just rather large. Okay, so we have our piece of 7.5 by 10-inch blue holographic here, and it's got that really cool, really kind of dynamic patterning to it. Works really great for northern lights when vertical, and when horizontal, to me it reads as kind of like water, but then reflecting the colors of the sky. It's got that really cool, kind of blue greenish transition. It has the reds in there too, but just really fantastic paper and fun to work with. All right, so if you're going to be doing this type of thing, you really have to work with the correct inks. I get comments almost like every day. Well, not every day, but someone that's just having troubles with something, but they're substituting. Sometimes you can substitute certain types of media with kind of unconventional surfaces, but you can't go with like almost the opposite of what I'm doing because these are kind of more particular types of inks and media that I'm using with certain types of surfaces. Okay, if I'm using cardstock, then you can use practically anything, just white cardstock I'm talking about. But like when it comes to like a vinyl or a metallic cardstock, use your StazOn inks for certain things like impressions, but use the Brilliance inks for your white and black applications, basically light and shadow. Okay. It's two pads. You don't have to get the full line or anything like that. And why anyone would not get it, I don't know. I'm a believer in very versatile media. All right, I'm kind of joking about that, in terms of, you know, why wouldn't you get it? But if you have a lot of different types of papers, it just opens them all up for usage with stamping. Otherwise you can't do these types of things on them, and you have to use those papers that are in your collection for other types of things, which is cool, but it's also nice to be able to do whatever you want with them, okay? And a lot of us have just all kinds of different papers that we've collected over the years. If you're a stamper or scrapbooker, it's just kind of nice to be able to dip into them and to use them in whatever type of application you want, okay? All right, so I'm applying a field of snow down here. It's been really kind of warming up in different areas of the country. Out of the country, I hear comments by people saying, hey, I'm doing a winter scene, you know what I mean, or a Christmas card, because kind of, you know what I mean, it takes our mind off things, and I don't know, I think when it comes to stamping scenes, they're kind of transportive in terms of kind of mentally and emotionally, because we go to the places kind of in a way that we're stamping out. We can see these places, and it just, I don't know, in the time that you're stamping them out and maybe looking at them afterwards, you're kind of there in some ways. I mean, if it's 100 degrees in your house, and it's not going to suddenly feel like it's, you know, 70 or something like that. But I think there could be like a 10% or, maybe a 10 degree type of thing, just in terms of, kind of, taking our minds off of the discomfort or something like that and heat. A nice cold drink maybe would do the same type of thing, but you're kind of, but when we're doing something like this, we're kind of focused on it too. So our mind is, thinking about something else other than, kind of physical, I don't know, whatever discomforts. Okay, so if you hadn't watched this before, these types of scenes before on these holographics like this, the Brilliance ink is going to apply on here and dry, but it will not adhere to it, okay? You can wipe right into that and it'll come right off, even when dry, okay? So after I'm done with this, I'll need to spray seal the areas that I've applied my ink to, okay? And we'll do that with a, acrylic ink or something like that. But that being said, if you ever get anything that, doesn't particularly go look nice on our scene, then you can always kind of wipe it off and start again, okay? You won't, see, did you see that where I just kind of blotted into it a little bit? I don't know, I gave the wrong movement and it just kind of wiped off. But you just kind of build it up, all right? It's good paper to practice on too, as far as this kind of technique goes, all right? All right, so this is going to be kind of like a meadow down here, okay? And I'm going to have my wolves running across this terrain. And then there's going to be stars in the sky. And we'll have some clouds up there as well. And our northern lights in the sky. Inherent. The hardest part about this thing would be, not the hardest thing, but kind of the most time consuming would really be the northern lights. But that's why we start with this paper, so that we already have them inherently in a manner in which there's no way we can kind of create this by hand. So it's already done for us. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm building this up. I want to get this high enough on here where we can see this tree line. If I stamp this tree line directly on top of this in these darker areas, you're really not going to be able to see this tree line. So we have to have some white behind there, okay? All right, now it can get a little bit awkward looking when we're doing something like this technique. So the thing that I use to remedy all that is cloud effects, okay? So what I'm going to do, that ripped too cleanly, I'm going to try to create a very rounded edge, varied background here. And this is going to be a template for my clouds in the background. And having some lighter clouds in the background will, well, it'll create variation on this, but it'll also create a backdrop for my dark imagery, okay? So in order to see something, you have to have some contrast, dark against dark is not going to be readable. Light against light is not going to be readable. So we need some kind of contrast playing against one another. Okay, and behind this row of trees, we'll also have this mountain in here too. I thought that would be pretty dramatic up there. Kind of has this vertical type of, visual kind of directional look to it. And then what we'll do is we'll soften it up a little bit with some clouds behind there, okay? Okay, so let's see here. Every time you ink up your pad, I'm kind of dabbing it in here to flatten this out, okay? I have a couple little stragglers in there as far as like some lint coming off of the cotton ball. I almost said cloud. But it's easily remedied. Okay. You can do this little template that we made, this little cloud stencil. You just kind of move it around a little bit as you do this. And I feel that that comes out quite a bit better in terms of creating some nice variation. Okay, now I'm going to try to do some of these clouds a little bit lighter. And some a little bit, or a little bit darker, I should say. So thinner. So when you create the thinner application of white here, you know, more of the paper shows through. So this is like a real thick application of white, and this is a little bit thinner, and that's thinnest, okay? Also kind of have it a little bit, kind of varied too. This down here, I didn't vary it too much. I'll go back and tweak that a little bit, but I'll show you what I mean. So as I'm adding this down, see some of it's a little bit lighter and some of it's a little bit darker. I think that looks good. But it also takes us off the hook of having to do things that looks super uniform and smooth. In this case, I think it looks a little bit more natural to have things more varied. Want to have it a little bit clumpy in some areas of your clouds in terms of the white, where there's a kind of a thicker layer or clump of ink. It'll look like the lighting is hitting it stronger in that area. And then clouds, you know, they're not flat. You know, they have a lot of dimension to them. So that's what those thicker areas of white applied to there will represent. Okay, so you use your template and then or stencil, and then go a little bit freehand as well. Don't kind of stay in one area for too long like that. I mean, you can add it down there, but then kind of blend it out like that. Okay, I think we have a pretty decent field here. Let's see if we have enough of this. I thought I went up high enough with this cloud. Let's go up even higher. I'll just free hand it up here, kind of with a drier version of the cotton ball of our ink applicator. You gotta kind of get your touchdown too. If I tap too hard, I'm probably going to be removing ink as opposed to transferring it. So if you tap kind of a little bit lighter like that, but with a kind of a more inked up cotton ball, you might apply more. So adjust accordingly. You know, you can get the kind of the feel of it as you're going along. It's like, oh my gosh, this is really hard. Well, use more ink, and then maybe tap lighter so that you're not kind of pushing into that ink that already exists and then grabbing it off the surface, okay? Which, you know, can happen at times. I re-inked my white pad before I started this too. I wanted to get enough, because I knew I was going to, you know, be filling up quite a bit of this paper with cloud formations. Okay, so I'm going to kind of vary this a little bit more. I'm going to have a cloud up here. Sometimes in visuals, diagonals kind of add a good dynamic to a scene, rather than just having everything kind of horizontal and even, okay? So I'm building this side up a little bit more. Okay, so I see that one goes up a little bit higher like that, so we have this kind of dynamic like so. All right. I know these two areas don't look related at all, but what we're going to do is we're going to splatter paint everything afterwards. But I think that looks pretty good for now. We can add a little bit more of this within reason. Okay, actually I'm going to add a little bit more. When I look down here, this is a little bit too even down here. I'm going to use the stencil down here just to create a little bit of a little bit more variation. See that right there? It kind of reiterates what's going on up in the sky as well. It's kind of good to have repeated patterns for continuity between areas. Yeah, that looks much better, I think. Let's see, let's go a little bit more distinctive up here too. Like I said, we can add this on, to some degree, but if I'm doing it over an image that's been stamped in black, there's a chance that you might lift a little bit of that image off, the black image off by going over it with white like this. So it's best to kind of get a lot of this kind of taken care of first. Remember, I mean, this might look like it's, oh my God, that's like taking forever to do all this. But we're not doing coloring after this. The color is already laid down in the paper. And this is a large piece. This is almost a full size, piece of paper here, so, or cardstock. So, this is, I'm working big here, so I wanted to go for potential, whatever visual drama in here, using scale, something, reasonably large. Okay, so there you go, like that. Yeah, I don't know if you can see where I touched right there and how that ink comes right off. It'll do that too, even after this sets up. So you're gonna have to get used to kind of handling it. I have to get reused to handling it. Whenever I don't do this for a while, it's like, oh yeah, I get used to having a lot of the ink on my fingertips from touching kind of on the the perimeter to turn my card around. Okay, let's see. We need a black Brilliance ink pad. And the meadow. Okay, so the meadow and the rocky peaks here. Now, another idea for this, if you want to just make things really fast, is you can stamp out your imagery in white instead, which would look kind of cool too. This is just going for a little bit of a different look here. But in this setting right here, it would be pretty cool to have our trees in white, to represent, I don't know, whatever snow-covered trees, etc. I'm wondering if I have enough ink on here. I think I do. All right, let's just go about right here. I'll be doing more impressions of this. All right. I have plenty of blotter paper underneath my stamp, as cushioning. Kind of hold this down for a little bit longer than you would probably normally think to, just because this Brilliance ink will start to set up a little bit. It'll stamp into the white ink, which is already, it's wet. So what we want is for this black ink to merge somewhat with this white ink here and to transfer. Now, that's why I have to, I kind of thought about it. Is this black pad wet enough? Because I don't want to stamp kind of a dry version of this into a thick field of white. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is remove the white as opposed to transfer the black ink. And it looks good. It's even better than I thought it would be. It gave me a really good impression. I'm really pleased. Sometimes it comes out different, a lot of times here, so. Okay, now I'm blotting off around this perimeter and down here just so that I don't get this harsh line in my scene. And what we're doing is we're overlapping into our previous impression so that this is a nice seamless transition here. Okay, now just looking at this impression right here, I'm really pleased with the ink transfer, so I don't think I probably need to hold this down quite as long. All right, and we'll get one more over here. So it's this part. I'm going to ink up more than I think I am going to be using, though. I think my black pad is getting a little bit dry, though. I'm overlapping the previous impression by about a 1/4 inch, I would guess. All right. Meadow, large. Okay, now this is my little tiny rock stamp. It's a textural stamp that I use quite a bit in my pieces just to kind of anchor things down a little bit more and to give some good textural variation into a given area. I use it in water. You can use it on land. You can use it in thick grasses even. And you use it sometimes very lightly for lighter texturing, and you can also use it a little bit, kind of darker again. So you get this kind of nice variation happening within your space. It's a kind of a shading tool too. But you just kind of shade in texture as opposed to just straight tone. Okay, so see this right here. It just kind of gives a little bit of variation like that. But you can see darker and lighter impressions of it there. All right, let's go in with some mountains in the background. It looks pretty decent without that, but I think I do want some mountain forms. I might have to build up a little bit now that I see this. See, if I stamp this right here, I'm not going to have any clouds behind the mountains, so let's build that up a little bit more. Okay. Rocky Peaks. Pull it off the bottom, where it's going to be going into the trees or stamp behind the trees, okay? So I want this black to stamp out in a lighter version so that it doesn't obscure the silhouette of the trees, okay? And so again, it transitions off just like I wiped off the bottom of the meadow stamp so I don't have a harsh line there. Okay. All right, let's go about right here. Now, if this one stamps out a little bit lighter, I don't mind because it'll look visually like it's farther back in the distance, but let's just see how that goes. All right, inked up again, blotting off. Go over here. I'm overlapping the trees by quite a bit right here because I wiped off the bottom, so the trees are going up to about right here, okay? And I'm overlapping that previous mountain by about a ½ inch or so. This one I stamped out a little bit lower just so it, you know, would have a little bit of variation in here. And then here I'm going to use this portion to stamp right in here. So every time you ink it up, just remember to wipe off this area right here. You know, wherever you're going to be overlapping and transitioning. Okay. Wool's running. Large and small. These are off the canine set. Kind of, it's like a really good kind of depiction of the wild, you know, having these wolves kind of running in the nighttime, kind of under the stars and the northern lights. Okay, I'm going to stamp these ones a little bit lower, and then the smaller ones will be stamped higher because they represent, you know, wolves that are a little bit, you know, more distant, you know, instead of whatever, 10 feet away from us, they're going to be, you know, 20 feet away or something like that, 25 feet. I don't know. Allowing the transfer to take place here. Okay. Oops. They're real solid, so they didn't fill in. I'll show you how you fill that in. So that's what I mean, you know, about the transfer. You can see it right here. The ink is, I don't know if you can see it. The ink is still a little bit wet on there. So, in stamping it into kind of a damp surface like that, so some of the ink kind of vacuumed off of there. So you just fill that in. Wet and wet. The wet and wet potential effect. The larger the kind of the object that you're stamping in there, you know, in terms of surface area, that, you know, that can happen. It happens on the smaller images, but they're so, you know, small that you don't notice it in line, but you notice it in solids like that. Okay, so these ones I'll stamp a little bit higher up. Let's see, let's go with them right over here. I don't want to have them going up into a tree, so I'm stamping them below the tree, but higher up than the other two wolves. Okay, let's see if I can get rid of that fisheye effect. Yeah. Okay, so that one I held down a little bit longer. So what we do is we just take our little cotton ball. I think I might have had to do that on this one here too, in this solid form here, and the deer silhouette. So you just take your cotton ball like that, and that's our little brush, and you just fill in like this. I'm dabbing into it. Don't swipe into it, otherwise you're going to swipe off ink. And these wolves are silhouettes, so you just fill them in. Yeah, this one did get a little bit. Yeah, I guess these other smaller ones did lift a little bit in some areas without transferring, so I'll just get a little bit of tone into them, and they're pretty much good to go. Okay. Now, see, I can't, it's going to be hard to add some additional shadow below them too. I'd like to have a little bit more shadowed in there, so I'm going to use this, and I'm going to put a little bit more shading underneath them. With my Tiny Rock Small. See that right there? It just kind of anchors the imagery down a little bit more. And let's see. Why don't we add a little bit more kind of winter, kind of bushy textures. This is the winter brush here. And I'll just do this one in black. I was thinking about doing some imagery in white, but I guess we're going with the black imagery here, so we'll stick with that. And I'll just put this down in my kind of lower left and right corners here. Something like that. I leave a little bit of space in here sometimes. A couple smaller versions of this, maybe that would be good too, but yeah, just do that for now. All right. So I'm only at the 34-minute mark, and you know, we're almost done here. I mean, it's not too bad. It's strange to think about such a large format piece to be, you know, a quick scene. But you know what, I think this area right in here, I think I'm going to put a little bit more cloud texture, you know, another kind of something to break up that area a little bit more. Yeah, here's my stencil here. And let's go in with this. I'm going to do this one really quite subtle. Okay. I think. Let's see how this goes here. Oops. I have like a crease on my cotton ball there, I think. Just kind of blend it out then. And we'll come out up here with another little bit. And just something like that to just kind of break up that area somewhat. It is, I mean, it's really a very busy surface to say the least. So I like that up there. I'm gonna give it a little bit more. I was gonna make it super subtle, but I think they look pretty good up there. So I'm going to give them a little bit more definition. Let's define this one a little bit more too. Or this little part of the large cloud. Let's give it a stronger kind of defined edge right in here, like that. In a couple areas of it. Yeah, something like that, I think. Kind of just balancing out things in the background a little bit more. Like about like so. Okay. We have our Dr. Martin's bleed proof white. And I'm going to splatter paint this whole piece here as if it's like snowfall coming down. So it'll look like stars in the sky. And I think I do need some variation in here. I was thinking about a full moon, but I don't think I want to do that. A full moon would kind of, we'd lose, I don't know, it might be too much, it might be too distracting. I want the, the northern light type of effect to be more prominent, as a kind of visual focal point than, a big, white orb in the sky. I mean, I think it would look okay too, but for this one, we'll just go with the stars. Okay, so I've already kind of mixed this up before I started this video. You just put a little bit of ink into your toothbrush here, just a little tip right there, and then you kind of take off the excess ink. Okay, you don't need a ton of it. Well, I don't know, maybe on this one I might need a little bit more, but it's always best to kind of take some off. You can always, reapply. And then we're just going to start splatter painting right into this area. I tend to do a little bit too much a lot of times because this is such a fun process here, but so you get those stars in our areas up there. I'm just kind of releasing 2 or 3 bristles at a time too. I don't do a full like zip splatter across there. I just have more control over doing it this way. This is giving my scene a little bit more textural depth, having this whole white going against, kind of everything. It's in front of my wolves, it's in front of my mountains and trees, and meadow surface. So in the sky, I mean, it represents snowfall and stars down below. It represents snowfall, of course. Now remember, now this is going to stick pretty good on here. but you know, you don't want to go around touching this too much. Otherwise, you're going to be lifting off, you know, areas of white. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I put my finger accidentally into like a wolf or something like that. You know, if that's done, I don't know. You just kind of fill it back in with your, you know, toothpick. I mean, Q-tip or something like that. All right, this is a blue tone scene. I'm going to come into my areas up here and add a few little blue toned highlights. Okay, or stars. Okay. Coming up here, this. And adding these blue highlights. I might add a couple larger ones as well. Could represent larger stars, whatever, younger stars. Up in the sky. So then there's we have a little bit more variation up there. And then let's see if I can add a little variation to some of these mountain tops with this pen here. You know, little highlights on some of these mountains as they're catching the light. Because my lighting on these mountains with that white out in the background, it's all very uniform. I don't want to do anything too much on here, but you can see that, you know, some of these peaks, a couple of the peaks just have, you know, kind of a stronger illumination now, just with a few dots of white on there. So it just kind of represents where the lighting is, or I don't know, whatever the snow is kind of illuminating a little bit more. It makes it look a little bit more three-dimensional as well, like that. See that, you know, see if I don't want to add in too much because this is the pastel blue acrylic pen too, so white would really stand out. So if you have like a set of these, like Artistro pens, it's a pretty good one to go with, you know, because there's different values of each of the different hues. So there's light blue, you know, that you can use. If there's those green grasses down here, you can use, you know, a light green for your highlights. If you don't want to just use, you know, just straight white, you know, which is, like I said, it has a lot more contrast in it. So sometimes you want a little bit more of a subtle contrasting hue. Okay, so adding this down, you can see it on some of my rocks down here. I don't know if you can actually. Those rocks are a little bit lighter, but you can see those little twinkly lights up on top of my peaks in there. Actually, that looks pretty good. Let me add a few more. So you just add a little bit at a time, you know, and you never be kind of like shocked, oh my God, I added too much. If you just add a little bit at a time, and then you have to kind of look at, you know, what you've done. And then, you know, make an assessment. You know, if you want to add more. But yeah, those mountains in the background look a little bit nicer, varied, you know, with that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some a little bit more highlights down here. We'll make some of these areas in the snow kind of glisten maybe a little bit more. So I'm kind of clustering these little dots down here. Maybe I'll go with some white. So I added those shadows down there with the tiny rocks small. Now I'll come in here and, you know, kind of add a little bit of highlighting in there just to vary it a little bit more. Okay. See that? Look at that sky and those clouds. Different lights like that, different colors. And you can see it going in the background, you know, behind all my areas down here. You can see that pattern showing through a little bit, but I don't think that's bad because, you know, that snow is very reflective in terms of a surface, and you know, you would see these colors colors of the sky are going to reflect off of that type of surface too. So, and you can see down here, I mean, some areas don't, you can't see the color showing through it quite as much because the white is, been applied thicker, and more opaque in those areas. So I don't know. I don't think I really need to do. Okay, here's fine tune. I got a little bit too much of that white ink splatter painted over the top of this wolf down here. I don't like that too much of this white splatter on the wolves. A little bit, yeah, a little dot here and there, but I don't want, some wolf to have like chicken pox or something like that. Snow pox. There we go. All right. For a pretty big scene right here, 45 minutes. Not too bad. So this can air dry. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with a sealant right over the top of this area down here. And I'm going to do it in waves. I'll hit it with a really light acrylic seal, okay? Just go over it from distance, allow it to dry a few seconds, 10 seconds or so, I don't know, 15 seconds, something like that. Always do it outside. And then I'll spray seal it again, and then I'll do a light spray across the top here, probably with a Krylon UV resistant clear gloss, okay? I don't want to hit this up here too much because it starts to give kind of a more of a frosted look over that dynamic paper. I don't know, maybe in this case, maybe it'll harmonize a little bit more because that does look really crazy back there against kind of this softer terrain. But I don't know, I think it looks cool either way. But I don't know, there's a lot of stuff going on in this scene right here. And all we did was use black and white media. That's why these go fairly quickly. So doing something like this on a quarter page, I don't know, we probably could have done it in a similar type of scene in a quarter page format. I don't know, it might take 15 minutes at most, I would think. So anyways, fun with some different types of papers here. Just use the compatible media and you'll be set. Just get some Brilliance white and black. Get a reinker for those two and you'll be set. All right, thanks so much for watching, and hope you enjoyed it. If you like these videos, hope you hit the like button, help support the channel a little bit. It takes half a second to do, and I'd really appreciate it.